All right, so I'm starting off with these blankets that I got from Five Below, and I actually only used one for this part of the tutorial, but in part one I used, I think, two of them. Anyway, so I started off by cutting off the trim from only three sides of the blanket. So the side that had the tag on it, I left that trim on, but it really doesn't matter which side you choose. Then I folded the blanket in half vertically so that the right side was inside of the fold. Then after that, I measured from the top to the bottom of my bust. So that was 9 inches for me. And then after that, I measured around my bust, which was like 30 inches. And I just measured from the top of the folded blanket. I measured the 9 inches all across, and I just made marks each point that was 9 inches, and then I just cut a straight line to connect all of those marks that I made. And I just decided to use the full width of the blanket because I wanted to create like a gathered type of top. But in the end, I kind of wish I made the top like a regular fitted top because I think it looks a little strange, but that's my opinion. Anyway, then I stitched the two edges of the rectangle closed so that the right sides were facing. And doing that basically got me a tube like this. So the next thing then that I did was I just folded over the edge of the rectangle, and I made sure that the fold was big enough to basically create a casing for my elastic. And then eventually I repeated the same thing for the bottom of the rectangle. The other thing I did was I made sure to leave an open space for the rectangle so that I could insert my elastic. Hi, so this is the intro in the middle of the video. If you're new to my channel, my name is SHANiA, and I'm so happy that you're here. And I just want to say that if you are interested in seeing more sewing tutorials, then you should check out some of my other videos and also subscribe to my channel, because on this channel you'll find tons of sewing tutorials. Some of the tutorials that I have are of things that I've made from scratch to finish, so from fabric to finish. And then I have other tutorials where I take something that's already made, whether it's thrifted or it's just old, and I chop and screw it and create something new with it. So if you like that sort of thing and you like the way that I explain things, then you should definitely subscribe, because why not? Anyway, I'll let you go ahead and get back to the tutorial. I'll see you later. Ciao. So these are the sewing machine settings that I used in order to stitch the casing for the elastic. Then after that, this is what it looked like for the top and the bottom. Like I said, I just repeated the same step for the bottom part of the rectangle. So then I took my elastic and I measured my upper bust where I want the top to start. And when I did it, I didn't pull the elastic taut, but looking back, I should have done that because it makes it stay on more easily. But anyway, I attached a safety pin to one end of the elastic, and then to the other end of the elastic, I put a sewing clip. Then I just inserted the safety pin with the elastic into that opening that I left before I started stitching the casing. And then I just oops, so here, this is where I attach the sewing clip so that the elastic doesn't get lost in the casing. Anyway, so I just continued pulling the elastic through the casing using the safety pin as a guide. And I just kept doing that until it reached the opening area that I left. And I just needed to kind of like pull the fabric a bit so that it would ease its way down the elastic. And then what I did was I just removed the safety pin and the sewing clip, and I paired up both ends of the elastic together. And I just tried my best to make sure that the elastic wasn't twisted when I did this, because if you stitch it while it's twisted, there's no like going back unless you take out the stitches, right? So anyway, so I just kind of pulled my fabric to just kind of expose the elastic a little bit more better. And then I just use a zigzag stitch to sew down the elastic edges. And then the final thing I did was I just used a straight stitch to close the opening area of the casing. And after I did that, I then just went back and took my elastic and measured below my bust, so where I want the top to end, or where the top of the bottom would be. Wait, what? The bottom of the top would be. Yikes. Anyway, I repeated the same exact steps that I did for the first casing. So just kind of adding a safety pin and a sewing clip and just threading the elastic through the casing all the way till I reached the opening again, and then just kind of pulling the fabric so that it would kind of ease its way along the elastic and closing it up. So just literally everything that I just showed you. And this is what it looked like after I did that. And then from there, I was like, okay, I'm going to use the trim as my strap. So what I did was I just kind of pinned down the trim to where I wanted the straps to be. And then after that, I took the top and I just rotated it so that the back of the top would be in the front. So that way I don't have to like look behind me to figure out what I was doing. So then I took the strap and I took the bottom of the strap and I pinned it where I wanted it to be, where I wanted it to stay. And I repeated the same thing with the other strap. So then the next thing I did was I took the full strap. Oh, wait, let me get to that part and then I'll explain it. Okay, so then I took the full strap and then I just cut it in half so that way I could easily have 4 pieces, right? And it's much easier to do it that way, in my opinion. So I was just kind of playing around with how I could style the straps. I could tie it or not, but I wanted to leave it tied because I thought it was cute. So then I just straight stitched the straps down into place. And then later on, I decided to just make the elastic a little bit tighter because I didn't like how it was fitting. In full transparency, I really don't like how this top came out. And if I were to do anything different, I wouldn't have gathered it because I feel like the fabric is so thick that you don't really see the gathering effect. It just looks too big. So if you're following the steps that I did, what I suggest you do is just measure your, from the top of your bust to the bottom of your bust and keep, follow those steps that I use to create the length of the rectangle. But in terms of the width of the rectangle, like just keep it the same amount as whatever circumference you get for your bust. Like don't make it any bigger than that because then it's just going to look how mine look. I don't know what happened to my lighting. But anyway, don't make it any bigger than your actual like bust circumference measurement. But if you like the way that it came out for me, then by all means follow everything that I did. All right, let's continue. All right, so to make the shorts, I took my pants pattern, which I do have a tutorial on, and I just kind of placed it how high I want my shorts to be, and then I cut a 1/2 inch along the side, and I stopped about 1 inch below the original waist of the pants pattern because I didn't want it to be that high waist. Then I also cut about a 1/2 inch away from the inseam line. And then once I got to the top of the inseam line where it intersects with the crotch, I continued to cut a 1/2 inch away from the crotch line, but once I got to the midpoint of the crotch line, then I decided to add more space because I thought that adding more space would allow me to create a sort of gathered effect when it was time to insert the elastic. And again, I stopped about 1 inch below the original waistline of the pants, and then I just cut straight across so that I could cut out the new waistline of the shorts. And then I repeated the same step with the other pant pattern. I believe this was the back of the pant pattern. And then I just again cut across the new waistline of the shorts and then just cut straight like this, and then you'll see that I have 4 pieces, and that's because my blanket was folded. The thing I did was I stitched a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the crotch line for both sets of pant pattern pieces, and this is what it looked like when I opened it up. And so you see I have the front pieces and the back pieces, and I just connected the front and the back along the side seams and then also along the inseam, and I just stitched a straight stitch 1/2 inch away from those 2 edges. Then after that, I had my shorts like this. So the final thing I did was I created a casing for my waistband, and I pretty much followed the same steps that I did for the top of the loungewear, just literally just sewing the casing and leaving an open space to insert the elastic, measuring my waist with the elastic, adding a safety pin to the top and adding a sewing clip to the bottom of the elastic, threading it through the open area, and then literally closing the opening. And this is what it looked like. And I experimented with like the straps and just kind of tying like the back straps in front. And yeah, and this is a full set. If you haven't seen the first part of this where I show you guys how to make the robe, then you should definitely check it out.